And now Dan Duquette joins us from Baltimore right now here at the Pulse Network. Dan, congratulations, my friend.
Thanks a lot, Butch. I appreciate that.
You've got to be ecstatic. It's been 9 years since you've been out of baseball, and let's pull no bones about it. It has been your life. It's been your love. We've known each other for a long time. And again, you've got to be ecstatic because baseball is what you live for.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a great opportunity, and I'm grateful to the Angelos family to be here right here at Camden Yards. You can see it in the background. It's a great ballpark, and the franchise has a great history. And what we need to do is breathe some life back into it so we can get a competitive team and get the fans out here to celebrate the 20th anniversary, believe it or not, of this ballpark.
Dan, I want to talk to you about Buck Showalter. I found it interesting, some of the comments he had publicly. I wasn't down there, obviously, with you. But you came there, and Buck made no bones about it. They had interviewed other people. You impressed him, and you impressed other people with your knowledge of the organization. And I thought Buck's comments were very interesting because he was a guy who took some time away from the game also, and he looked at the time away from the game that you took and said that it's a good thing, that you have a different perspective, yet you're still up on the game. Talk about the relationship you guys have had or are going to have going forward.
Well, one of the things that attracted me to this job was the caliber of the Major League manager, and Buck is an organizational builder like I am, and it's going to take a lot to get this ball club back on track. We're going to have to change the culture, and we're going to have to build the pitching in the minor leagues and in the big leagues, and Buck's a good partner to do that with. And I'm glad he brought up that being away from the game helped him, because it certainly helped me. It gave me a totally different perspective on a number of things. And it's a different perspective than I would have had if I just sat in the GM seat and continued there.
You know, you talked a little bit about this at your press conference, how you've changed in the 9 years since you left the Red Sox. How have you changed? How are you gonna treat the media differently? Are the Baltimore media going to get to know you like I did, and most of the Boston media didn't get a chance to get to know you?
Well, I think that's right. I think I'm going to attend and be more personal in the business of communicating, what it is we're trying to do. And communicating directly with the media members. I think that I could have done a better job with that in Boston. I'm certainly going to work hard on that in Baltimore.
A couple of baseball questions for you. I look at this Orioles team, and I look at the nucleus of it with Markakis and Brian Roberts, who unfortunately hasn't been able to stay healthy. You got J.J. Hardy under contract. You got Mark Reynolds under contract. You got a lot of guys that are arbitration eligible and under your control. Adam Jones, Wieters, Chris Davis, Luke Scott. I mean, where do you start, Dan? Where do you start with your foundation with this team?
Well, I think you just named the foundation, Butch. Those guys up the middle, Hardy and Wieters and Jones and Markakis. That's the group we're going to have to build around, and then we're going to have to build up the pitching staff. And then beyond that, we're going to have to build up the inventory in the minor leagues so that we've got capable replacements, if you will, when we need them in the big leagues.
You know, there were your critics here in Boston who said that, well, Dan just took the farm system and threw it out. There were others that would say, and I was one of them, well, look what he did with the farm system. He acquired Pedro Martinez, acquired Derek Lowe and Jason Varitek. He acquired many other players and built. I guess my direct question is, how do you go back to square one with the Orioles and build a scouting and development machine like you're going to have to do?
Well, that's the real challenge. And if you remember when I came to Boston, they were in the bottom three in terms of players they produced. And our scouting staff had gotten old altogether. Tom Yawkey had 10 scouts over 65. So this challenge is different, except that we have to build up the inventory. And, that can be done, and if you get enough critical mass there from your minor league system to support your major league team, that's the only way I know how to have a good organization year in, year out.
It's Dan Duquette. He's the executive vice president of the Baltimore Orioles. Again, we're congratulating Dan on his job and being back in baseball. Dan, I want to ask you a couple questions about the business of the Baltimore Orioles. And I want to try to make it analogous to any other business, if you will, for a second. So here you come in, and you've got your finger on the pulse. You've been put in charge of restoring a major corporation, a long-time brand back to prominence. It's an organization that hasn't had a winning season in 14 years. It's a brand that fans are loyal to. How do you take your loyal fan base, because you're probably not going to win for a while. I mean, who knows? You could win next year. But assuming you're not going to win for a couple of years, how do you start with the business of the Baltimore Orioles right away?
Well, first of all, I'm not going to assume that we're not going to win for a couple of years, Butch, because I'm going to do everything I can to turn this thing around. And if we can turn it around and get some energy at the ballpark where we win more games than we lose, the people will gravitate naturally back to the brand because, as you said, this is a great brand. And we have a foundation of a good market here. It's a great baseball town. And really, we need to recapture the Oriole magic that they had here and the magic that is here when you come out to this beautiful ballpark. And I think that really starts with having a competitive team, a team that the fans can identify with and connect with. We've got the players and leaders and the guys that we just mentioned that I believe that they can connect with, but they want to come out and see us be a contender in the East. And once we do that, I think we'll get, all our people that are on the fringe waiting to see this ball club come back.
Well, you and I both know that sports can be cruel but also fun because it's black and white. You either win or you don't, and when you do win, it leads to the business of baseball. But when you look at the business of baseball, how do you, you just mentioned it, Dan, you have so many things going for you there. You got a legendary ballpark. You've got the aura of Cal Ripken that still hangs around the team, one of the greatest baseball players of all time. You've got a good young team. You've got to sell your product. Where do you start with the revenue streams? It's always about winning games, I understand that, but where do you start trying to develop some new revenue streams with the Orioles?
Well, the regional sports network that they built when Washington came here is one revenue stream that can be accessed.
And that's Masson, right? Mid-Atlantic Sports Network?
Yeah. Sports Network, that's right. And then building up the attendance would start with reconnecting with the corporate sponsors that are here in the Baltimore, Washington area, for the suites and the season tickets. And then beyond that, once we get some players in here that the fans are really excited about, we can increase our season ticket base. So along with that comes the increased revenues from concessions and merchandising, all those things, but it all follows from a certain energy of having a competitive team.
A couple last questions. I know you're pressed for time, Dan. One is this, a very direct question. Are the Orioles going to be a player and make a splash in the free agent market?
Yeah, I believe that we'll be a player. I believe that we'll sign some good players. I don't know that we're going to be in the Cecil Felder market, but, you never know if it makes economic sense.
You're dating yourself. That's his son, Prince, not Cecil.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. But, that's not the first mistake I made, believe it or not.
Well, at least you wore an orange tie, not a red tie, to the press conference. Of course, Dan talking about his mention of Boston in his introductory press. People forgave you for that already, right?
Well, I had to apologize for the Oriole fans, but again, that's not the first time I made that mistake. When I went from Milwaukee to Montreal, I got up to accept the Organization of the Year award in Montreal, and I said I wanted to accept it on behalf of the Milwaukee Brewers, and Charles Bronfman has never let me live that one down.
So, Dan, another business question related to free agency. When you were in Boston, you convinced Tom Yawkey to commit a lot of money and a lot of years to some star players. You traded for Pedro Martinez, but you signed him very quickly thereafter. You spent a ton of money on Manny Ramirez that, despite all Manny's foibles, proved to be worthwhile. So you've built the model in a big market. The Orioles' payroll is under $100 million. They're a mid-market team by baseball definition standards. So how do you balance that? How do you look at the Orioles as a business and how much money you can spend and again, free agency and guys you're going to commit to and sign, from the business end of it? Where do you start with that?
Well, I think we're going to have to understand that we have to work a little bit harder and come up with ways to evaluate the money that the investments that we are going to make, so that we have to invest a little bit smarter than the big teams in order to be competitive. There's enough resources here, and the ownership is committed to having a good team. We need to be very calculated and precise in how we invest those dollars in every market: international scouting, major league free agents, minor league free agents, the trade market. but it's gonna take some effort to be a little bit smarter, if you will, than those big teams that have more resources.
Final question, Dan. The baseball winter meetings are coming up. I would imagine you're going to be there, or your people are going to be there. It's going to be a really different feeling and a really good one, I would imagine, for you to be a part of a major league organization again after 9 years away, isn't it?
Well, it sure is, and we had a great day at the press conference. Daniel and Dana, my two boys, came down, and then after the press conference, Dana kept teasing, when are we going to go on the field? And then we got a nice picture at home plate. So that was a special day, and I'm really looking forward to connecting with a lot of my friends that I haven't seen in a while. We'll start next week at the GM meetings, then, of course, at the winter meetings. It's kind of like a homecoming.
I haven't looked at the schedule. I don't know if you have. Is it even out yet? Do you know the first trip to Fenway?
No, but it should be a lot of fun. I look forward to seeing you guys.
It's going to be a little different, isn't it?
Well, it'll be different, but again, these are great franchises with great histories, and it makes it a lot more interesting when the Orioles will have a better ball club, and that's what I aim to help them construct.
Hey, Dan, I know your time's valuable. We really appreciate you taking a few minutes out for us, and on behalf of all of us here at the Pulse Network and Boston sports fans, congratulations. We really mean that.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Butch. I appreciate it, and hello to all my friends at the Pulse, and thanks again for that great opportunity you guys gave me there.
Good luck, Dan, and stay in touch.
All right, thanks.
Dan Duquette, the Executive Vice President of Baseball Operations at the Baltimore Orioles. I'm Butch Stearns. This is the Pulse Network.